Hello, everyone, and welcome to Agile for Startups. So today really is about covering off exactly how Agile can work within your startup. A lot of people probably know a lot of the jargon around what's going on. That's why I really like the visual in front because there's so many terms and so many things that go on when people talk about Agile and so many people focus on it being about software development. And really today I want to go through exactly why Agile can work for startups, not just necessarily for managing your startup, but also for everything that goes around your startup. So before again, I'm James Brookes. I'm the head of projects here at the Startup Factory. And really, why should you be listening to me? I mean, there's a lot of people in the world. You go on LinkedIn, the Project Management Institute. There's so many people talking about Agile. So what can I really bring to this conversation and try and help all the startups out there? So I'm head of projects at the Startup Factory, which really means that my role is about helping startups go from an idea, helping scope, actually building the project through to then supporting afterwards. So I've had a wide range of working on our projects, and every single one we develop in an agile way. Before that, I was a project manager at Cake Solutions, where I cut my teeth and learned my trade, so to speak, where actually going through learning an agile process, helping define an agile process and formalize that, and going through that has really made what I can do. During the process of that, I became a certified Scrum Master. Wouldn't say it's particularly worth much on the basis that if you look, that a lot of people can be a Scrum Master. It's actually just a 2-day course. But then I'm also an Agile certified practitioner, which is a little bit more involved. And that basically shows that I've got the scope, the range, and the ability to talk about Agile and also implement it. And then throughout my role at head of projects, and this is something someone else said rather than my own tooting my own horn, showing a degree of common sense, communicating. I like to think I've got a decent sense of humour and no faffing about, which, let's face it, in startups these days, you can't really afford to faff. So, at a glance, let's get into Agile. There's 12 values, 4 principles. I'm not going to go into all of them today. I really want to focus just on the principles. And I think this is something people forget when talking about Agile is when it was actually developed, when everyone started to like, it was really based around the principles. It's not about a methodology. And of all of them, it's not when it says individuals and interactions over process and tools. It's not that the thing on the right isn't important. It's just we value the thing on the left more. So going into these individuals, interactions over processes and tools, always I've thought is the most important thing. Business is about people, processes are actually made about people, and the processes should work for the individuals rather than individuals working towards a process. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Any devs out there devs aren't usually a fan of comprehensive documentation, but always working software is your primary way of showing where things are going. Collaboration over contract negotiation and responding change over following a plan. Let's face it, I think in startup world, I think everyone has a plan. And the plan then doesn't usually go the way we think, whether it's funding doesn't come through or funding does come through. And then we have to respond to that change or pivots in the market. So what it actually means, and I alluded to a little bit of this then, is make the processes work for your team. I can talk till I'm blue in the face about how good Scrum is, how good Kanban is, but it has to work for you. You can tweak things, you can make nuances to the process, you can have a guiding principle, but making sure it works for your team is the most important thing. Having working software is the most important metric of progress, more for the software side than this, but again, it's about the actual deliverable at the end being something people can use, and whether that's, you can apply that a little bit to sales, in the most important metric is actually how many sales you've made, because that's the real thing that people are going to be talking about. Talk and collaborate with your customers. If you think you've listened to any of the webinars or podcasts, one of the overriding themes is get out the building, go and talk, go and see what's going on. If you focus on the minutiae of contracts, you're in a very good place or a very bad place, and be ready to pivot. We know it's going to happen. Start so as the market changes, whether there's a legal change you have to respond to. There's so many things that can happen that you need to be ready to pivot and for the plan to change. So I led with this. Agile doesn't just work for software teams. Initially, it was designed to replace the old waterfall methods of here's a big comprehensive document, and it just didn't work. By the time it got approved, negotiations on contracts, by the end of it, a piece of software gets delivered in 2 years' time, and it's probably out of date, and it's not what people wanted. And the process, generally speaking, doesn't really work. So how did we make it better? And the idea was Agile. So how we actually implement this and what we do at TSF. So, and we practice what we preach as well, by the way. So as much as each project we work on has its own Jira board, which is just a tool, which I can come on to a little bit if anyone's got any questions around tooling. We have a backlog of things which are purely designed for each individual project and the tech team to build, but we have it for the business. We have marketing, we have events that we run, such as this. We have sales, and we use boards in this way to try and do that. So how do you actually start? Well, it's quite easy. Once you've decided, let's focus on a business holistically, we're going to do it. Also talking about working in startups, not just for business, for tech teams. So you create your backlog of items. These are all the things you want to deliver. And we call these, a lot of people call them tickets, but basically it's having a big list, and here's all the things that you want to try and deliver on. So it could be a particular sale, so customers, or a particular feature in the software. There's a lot of things you can really have it as. And there's loads of free tools to do it with. Trello is one that people popularly used, recently bought by Atlassian, and it's still free. And there's paid ones as well. We use Jira. I remember there's Tiger was another. Or if you want to go really old school, you can just have a load of post-it notes on the wall, which is something, again, we do at TSF. And like I said, this can be per department or team or however your company's organized, or if you want to segregate sales from marketing, from development, you can really start to then, or you can just have everything together and give that overall visibility, especially if you're at the very early stage and there's only one or two of you. Having everything in one place to see actually what's going on and actually going through that can really help with visibility for the business and actually just keep track of what you need to do. Ideally, when you're doing these things, there's a whole load of structures. There's epics, and I could do a whole talk just around structuring a Kanban or a Scrum board, depending what you want to go with. But your smallest unit ideally shouldn't be more than a day, because you can break things down from epics to stories to tasks to subtasks. And again, there's a lot to that and how you physically go around structuring a board. Well, ideally, whatever your smallest unit is, shouldn't be more than a day in length. Very simple reason for that. It's really good to show progress, and it makes you feel better moving things from to do to in progress to done. So we try and limit, even in the dev cycle, individual items to be a maximum of a day. And obviously, they can all total up, and then big ticket moves across. But one of the things that is the most important with all of these is there should be a very clear definition of what done means. Especially in software, there's especially when developers get excited, they can go slightly overboard, add more features. Or in business, actually you can go further and further and further. But I think for each individual ticket, being clear on what done actually means. Is it that from a dev perspective, is this deployed to live? Is it, and then for a sales perspective, is it that we've actually signed a contract? Because it might be actually delivering on the contract and that actually starting on being paid. From a marketing perspective, it could be actually run the event, but you might have another ticket which is about feedback from the event. There's a lot of ways of doing that, and you just need to be clear on what your definition of done is, and that's a really personal thing to how you want to describe your board. Like I said, can be a big team, can be per team, or it can be one big master board of everything. I think the bigger the organization gets, you probably then start to break things up. Like I said, at TSF, we have a big old board of everything that the team's doing individually. and then we have a board for each of our clients, which clients got access to. And it's really great to see from our client's perspective actually what's being worked on. And then at that point, you've got your big product backlog. You need to work out whether you want to run Scrum or Kanban, which are the two most popular ways of running an Agile project. So Kanban is probably the leanest, most straightforward way of doing a project. So you start with the backlog. We've already discussed how you create that. You prioritize it. So you put the most important thing at the top, the least important thing at the bottom, move things around. I prefer doing sort of relativistic rather than spending lots of time estimating to try and work out where things should go. Then you pick up the task that's at the top, you do it. Then whether you've got in review or whether you just move things straight to done, that's Kanban. Obviously, in a more delivery focused sense, done is usually done with a demo, and then you go pick the next thing off the top. It's a really straightforward, really lean process. It does require a little bit of discipline in making sure that your backlog is actually prioritized and moving things around to make sure that you are dealing with things that's the highest priority. You can move things back through the columns as well, but really the process is aimed at trying to be sleek, and it's good for that. And that's the process we actually run at TSF at the moment. There is a more structured approach, which is Scrum, which is really the process which I cut my teeth on while I was at Cake, where you start off with your product backlog. Again, you prioritize it, so it should be the most important thing to the top. That's always going to be a principle of Agile, that you want to either deal with the most important or the highest risk things first. It's the whole fail first kind of methodology and how that then impacts other things that are going on. Then you have this idea of a sprint. Now, I'm personally not a fan of a 1 week or a 4 week sprint. I'm much more a fan of a 2 week sprint. 1 weeks I've often found to be too short to deliver things in a very meaningful way. And then the actual ceremonies, which is what they call the meetings, why they call them that, I'm not quite sure, become a little bit burdensome in terms of the amount of time that they take. And a 4 week sprint is sometimes a little bit too long, because the idea of Scrum is that you get your product backlog, you sit down now, whether it's t-shirt sizes, point sizes, whether it's, I just think we can deliver this much. You take from the top and you work your way down, and you put that into what we call the sprint backlog. You then press go on the sprint. You then, well, at that point, you've done your sprint planning, which is the first ceremony. You then press go in your sprint, and you start working on whatever it is. And you do a daily scrum, which is more important when there's more of you. There's only one of you talking to yourself in the mirror. It might not be the best use of your time, but it is a good place to check in and see what your plan is for the week, 2 weeks, and where you're up to. But the daily scrum, sit round, look at the board, stand up. It's called a stand up. The reason it's called a stand up is when they first started doing the daily scrums, some of them could go on a bit long. So they wanted to make people uncomfortable. So the idea is you can do it in 15 minutes, but you stand up. So people don't want to be stood up for too long and want to finish the meeting. And that's where the name came from. You do your daily scrum, or you stand up to make sure that you're on track, find out where any problems are, if anyone needs any help. And these are things to try and make sure that by the end of the 2 weeks, everything is moved across to done. What you then do is a review or a demo. So this might be just internally, or it might be to external clients or stakeholders to show we said we would deliver this in 2 weeks, or whatever the sprint length is. Here it is. It's been finished. Can you sign that off? Great way of getting sign off, and it's a very structured approach. The reason that we moved away from doing Scrum is that we often found that things changed too regularly for the starters we were working with, because it's very hard to go, here's what we'll deliver in 2 weeks, and then assuming that you then get to the stage of actually we need to move this day, and this needs to come out, this needs to go in, which Agile is great for. We need to be able to respond to change and it kind of becomes hard to kind of quantify exactly what the sprint was trying to do. We found that Kanban gave that flexibility. So I think for starting out, Scrum is probably my preferred process, just to give you that level of structure to start really getting into things. And it's a good way to check up on delivery. But then if you've realize that that level of structure might be inhibiting your team, again, going back to the point, people over process, changing the methodology to something that's more like Kanban is probably a little bit better. And in both, and it's one of the most important things that people forget to do or don't do, is the retrospective. So at the end of either each sprint, or in Kanban where there's not a sprint or a set time zone, we set a time. So we're actually doing our own retrospective tomorrow. There's hundreds of ways of doing it, but there's a real focus on what you're actually trying to do and what's happened and how you can improve things. We've even built our own app to be able to run retrospective better. So I've kind of covered this a little bit in terms of choosing. I'll go on some into retrospectives later. Do you and your team work better with structure and timed deliverables? Well, I'd probably suggest maybe doing Scrum. Or like I said, starting out, probably look at Scrum. And then if things start to change more rapidly, or you feel that doing the ceremonies every 2 weeks, or every week, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, whatever you choose as your sprint length, is becoming burdensome in terms of the time lost estimating, prioritizing, planning, and then demoing and then retroing, maybe start to look at a more Kanban-based approach where you do that on a more per ticket level. So what this means for your business, you focus on iterative development, developing work and deploying working software, especially in a tech business. That's massively important. It's really easy to move your devs from pillar to post, have them working on different features, and by the end, there's a lot of things at 50% which you can't show anyone. Focusing on finishing one thing front to back, deploying it, move on to the next thing, has really helped software development teams. That's why Agile is probably one of the most used methodologies or principles, and then the methodologies to actually get these things going. There's a real focus on blockers and support to get things moving. So one of the reasons that you do your daily scrum, your stand up, is what did you do yesterday? What did you do today? Have you got any problems? And the idea being, actually, I need feedback from a client. People know that you need to go and do that and can help you in that. Or actually, I'm struggling with this. People compare program and all the other good things that development teams do to block each other. Or it might be discussing sales and go, actually, I'm having a really difficult negotiation with this client. It's not, I'm not sure what to do. People can lean in and help you. Again, Agile can work for the whole business, not just for the software team. And I think the demos are great to check in at key points and celebrate successes. One of the things is, and I saw a post yesterday on LinkedIn about this, about working in your business. And I think everyone knows, as a founder, you're wearing so many hats. You're trying to do all the sales, you're trying to do all the marketing, you focus on fundraising, so you're being your own fractional CFO for a point. You're doing so many roles that it can often lead to, just grinding through and working in the business, and then trying to step out, work on the business, and then stepping through again. But what you can do is, just when tickets move across, whether that's in the morning, whether that's the bigger tickets moving across to done, you can celebrate those successes of demos. You can celebrate them each morning that a big ticket has moved across to done. And like I say, it's not quite, and it really helps. You can sit down and do that. If anyone is trying to implement these processes, I am more than happy to sit there with you and, go through some of this, see how it can work. And like you say, when you get to these points, you've earned a pat on the back. Someone should be there to say that. And I'm more than happy to do that with anyone who would like help, and I'll try to reach out to me at the end. Like I said, all of this is about individuals making the processes work for them. Every team is different. What works for one development team might not work for the other. Same with the tooling. Some people might really, really, really like Jira. Not many people do. It can be a little bit clunky and overburdensome. Again, more than happy if anyone is using tools and wants any help, more than happy to look at those with you. But looking at making sure that these things work, and where it doesn't work, making sure that everyone is on the same page. So, like I said, do your retrospectives. They are the most important ceremony within Agile. there's, like I said, there's lots and lots of ways to do it. We built our own application and use a traffic light system. I've seen people, I used to draw pictures of boats on a wall, and you've got your anchor, you've got your sails for what's slowing you down, what's moving you forward. But at its base point, it's what went well. What do you go, do you know what, we should really focus on this because this really worked. What didn't work? Well, actually, this is slowing us down. The client isn't involved enough. So how do you fix? And then you can start looking at how to fix that. What's blocking the team? Actually, we need to move from Chat GTP 3 to Chat GTP 4 because that's where the functionality is. We can't work on this. So then you can work on mitigations and plans to actually unblock the team. And you can just try things. Actually, do you know what? Why don't we move from a 2-week to a 3-week sprint? Actually, the 4 month isn't working. Let's work on 1 week. And that works on so many levels. Sales and marketing isn't close enough to the development team. Right? How can we fix that? These are all things that work in small teams and they work in big teams. If you're doing it on one board or multiple boards, I'd always suggest try and do your retrospective together because this is about making the process work for you and the company. And the whole point of Agile is you can try, and the whole point is iterating. You start, you do one cycle, you do another cycle, you do another cycle. Make each cycle better than the last. Whether that's actually we're delivering more because the team's more gelled, whether that's we're delivering better quality or people are generally happier. These are all things, and you iterate until it works. And then once you've got it working, the whole storming, norming, performing, you can go through that cycle and really get to a solid process that is your process that works for you. So I know I've really ran through this, that Agile is such a huge topic. We have covered it in our book. We have covered it on the podcasts. If anyone does want to pop in for a coffee and have a conversation, more than happy to talk your ear off for an hour about Agile, how it can work for you, or if you haven't had any problems with it, how maybe there's some things you can try. I'm always happy to lend some advice. Equally, if you are interested in what TSF does and how we work, you can apply to our website for any startups. The very brief TSF plug. We work with early stage startups. We work on a sweat equity shared risk model. So we typically, cost of a build will be part cash, part equity. And, typically we don't look above the sort of 10-20% mark in terms of percentage of equity. So again, if anyone wants any conversations with me about that, I'll put a link to both my LinkedIn and my Calendly. So if anyone wants to just book in half an hour, 45 minutes, have a conversation. We don't charge to help people. We want everyone to get the support they need. So yeah, there's my email address. So if anyone wants to get in touch, feel free to drop me an email. Here's my calendar link. So just booking a time. We can talk about whatever topic it is that is on your mind, whether you want feedback on a pitch deck, on potentially, how to start. More than happy to help that. And the QR code there, if you scan that, that goes to my LinkedIn. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and thank you very much.